we are live, which is already have a couple of people watching, which is awesome. So welcome for those of you joining. If you are not aware, my name is Elizabeth Greene, and I am one of the co-founders of an Amazon ad agency. So that is what we are going to be discussing today, is anything and everything Amazon advertising, which I am super stoked for. So the format of this, I typically do LinkedIn audio events, but I'm testing out the live video feature, and I'm also streaming live on a couple of channels. So wherever you are watching this from, what you can do is in the comment section. So if you drop a comment on any of the social platforms where this is going live, I will get your question. We will put it up on the screen. So we'll be again here for about an hour answering anything and everything Amazon advertising questions. So if you want to make sure that your question gets answered, make sure that you go ahead and drop it in the comment section so we can make sure to get you an answer. These are some of my favorites, so make sure you stick around. Depending on the stream of questions, we may ask, sort of follow-up questions to help clarify these types of things. So super stoked for this one. How was everybody's Prime Day? We've been analyzing Prime Day. Typically, I think it was last October. Prime days in October were a little bit dead, and we weren't really expecting all that much this October. I mean, we tend to see a lift, but we weren't quite sure what that lift was going to look like. But it looks like, at least for our brands, and then also for a lot of my agency friends and brands out there, Prime Day ended up being pretty strong this year. Was pretty awesome. Cool. So we are showing hello. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you joining in on watching this live stream. It looks like you're joining from LinkedIn, which is awesome. Feel free to type it in the chat. So if you have any Amazon ad questions, the format for this is going to be, we're going to be using the comment section. So feel free to type those in. We will, kind of bring those comments up on the screen, and I will give you my live answers. So this is going to be fun. I'd be curious to know those watching on LinkedIn how you find the video events to be, because typically I've been doing LinkedIn audio events and then streaming those live to other channels. It was kind of a different way of doing it. So we're testing out the LinkedIn video lives today, which we'll see how the participation goes in the comments. I tend to typically get some in the comments. So appreciate Zebula watching on Facebook and the like on Facebook. So I appreciate it. But yeah, so if anyone has Amazon ad question, feel free to type it in the chat. Here we go. Cool. So we got our first ad question. And again, I'm going to be here for about an hour, providing we have enough questions to fill up that hour. So, that is, yeah. So did my own questions. It seems like we got a few coming in here, which will bring this one up on screen. So the question is, I love these questions. They're great. If you have a low budget, let's say $500 monthly and ACoS is more than 100%, then how do you move forward with other than budget allocation on top performing targets? What other strategies can we use? So this is the difficult question. And what can you do when you have very limited ad budgets? And to be honest, the answer is twofold. One, you have to be very, very strategic with the ad targets that you're choosing. Because with limited ad budgets, and you just have a lot less to stretch how far those budgets are going to go. So if you had say an average cost per click of $1 in your space, and then you had an average conversion rate, let's say we had a 10% conversion rate, that's 10 clicks, that's $10 per click on one keyword to make one order. And if you're saying you only have a $500 monthly budget, then that budget is not going to go as far. So you're saying, and the ACoS is really high. That probably means you have low conversion rate and you have really high cost per clicks in your space. So if you're dealing with that, I would say it's really trying to hone in on whatever targets you found that have generated orders for the product and have decent conversion rates on them. So you're really trying to hone in and see if it's at all possible. Now, to be honest, it sounds like you're in a really difficult situation as far as like, again, I'm kind of reading through the lines in, I'm assuming you have low conversion rates and high cost per clicks and then also limited budget. So those things kind of just make a really difficult account to deal with. So I would pick very limited targets, ones that I can sustain budget on all day and I have good conversion rates on. And if that means that I'm only advertising on 4 to 5 keywords, that means I'm only advertising on 4 to 5 keywords. I would much rather maximize my visibility on a couple keywords than I would try and create like a large 50, 100 keyword launch strategy and barely have enough advertising budget to get a couple clicks on all of those a day. So that's not, I mean, that's what you're going to have to think of in overall strategy. And again, it's difficult to pick those targets. So I would say the other thing that you want to do when it comes to strategy is really just determining your priorities. And so priorities for you are figuring out things that have good conversion rates and, at least potentially lower than average cost per clicks. So I am always going to be a huge fan of prioritizing the things that I already have ad data on. So I would look through, kind of your current keyword set and what you're running and see if you can find that anywhere in your current ad structure. I would prefer doing it like seeing what I have in the current ad structure before I would go out and do a whole bunch of new keyword research. The other thing that you want to do is within limited budgets, you want to make sure that you are performing much more limited testing. So for instance, if you went and did a whole bunch of keyword research and you're like, oh, I have these top, 100 keywords that sounds like they work really well for the product, pick a couple of those keywords, the ones that you feel like have the best potential, test those, see if you can get them to work for the product, and then move on to doing the next test batch. This is a strategy that we will use in really competitive categories sometimes. So like supplements and the like, because the cost of testing is so high. So that might be a good strategy for that one. Cool. All right, next question. Thanks for hosting this event. You are more than welcome. It is my pleasure. These are honestly some of my favorite events to host. What is your PPC launch strategy for a new product? Yes, very good question. I actually have an entire keyword research for product launch video up on our YouTube channel. I highly recommend going and watching that. So essentially what you want to do is you want to figure out where's the sort of relevant space that your product fits in. I am going to always advocate for getting much more specific on the relevancy of keywords to my product, then I'm going to be going super broad. The example I always get is, like if you have like a water bottle, if you run on water bottle, there's glass ones, there's insulated ones, there's plastic ones, there's, like the one where you have like your daily benchmarks water, but like it's super broad because you're not certain as to what the shopper is actually looking for when they type in that search, versus like women's pink insulated water bottle for running. Super, super specific. You're 100% certain what that specific shopper is looking for. And so what you're looking to do when you do launches is you want to find the intersection between where you have decent enough search that it makes sense to go after. So for instance, that search that I just gave you, like women's pink insulated water bottle for running, my guess is like if I went into Helium 10 and looked at the search volume for that keyword, first off, we might have no search volume, or it might be like 50 to 100 search volumes a month. That's not really enough to get me the momentum and the amount of shopper visibility for my product that I need on launch, because you're just at this point, you're just looking to like get the product in front of the shoppers. So you're trying to find that intersection between, okay, so if I do like women's pink insulated water bottle, women's insulated water bottle, like, do I get enough search there, and is it specific? So you're trying to find that intersection, and then how many keywords I'm going to launch on is actually determined by my budget. So to like the last question where he was saying like, hey, you only have $500 a month to be able to spend toward this, you want to factor that into your launch strategy. What I've seen far too many times, and why a lot of new sellers kind of get into hot water in the beginning with their advertising, is they will watch someone say like, okay, you need 100 keywords and you need to make sure you have this maximum bid on them, and you absolutely have to put these campaign budgets on them. So they'll build out this huge, robust launch strategy, and on day 3 they'll realize the budget of running this is a couple $1,000s a day, and I only can afford a couple $100s a day for my launch strategy. And so they end up pulling back. And the only reason you really waste ad spend, like true wasted ad spend, not tested, not like ad test budgets, but like wasted ad spend, is when you spend money on things that you are not able to glean long-term benefit of some sort of test results. So for instance, if I'm doing this like really robust launch strategy and I'm like, I can't afford $2,000 a day, and so I have to prune back my ads, and maybe I'll only have like 1 or 2 clicks on a lot of these keywords. 1 or 2 clicks is not enough for me to even do anything with that data. So that is like the true definition of wasted ad spend. So one thing you can do to actually sort of like forecast like how much, again, these are super rough forecasts, but you can say your like expected conversion rate. So if you take 1 divided by conversion rate, that's going to give you the average number of clicks that it takes for you to convert to 1 sale. So you can do that mathematics, and then you can look at what you think your average cost per click is going to be. Again, these 2 numbers are going to be super rough estimates in the beginning, and you're going to get more refined as you get data back. But those 2 numbers, so you can say, okay, how many clicks on average does it take me to convert to a sale? And then what is the average I'm paying per click? And then if you take those 2 numbers and you multiply them together, that on average is going to be the amount of ad spend you can expect to have if you get 1 order. And through that, you can actually forecast like launch ACoS, other things. But I would say you just stick with that basic forecast model. And that's how I would do it. And other things that's pretty common is we like to start out with exact match, sponsored product ads, probably more aggressive, again, on a limited keyword subset. And then if you have a video ad, you can also do exact match, sponsored brands video ad to launch. Those are the 2 that we tend to use there. And starting out, I actually have another video on our YouTube channel, like where you want to start your bids, because there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either start super aggressive, or you could be a little bit less aggressive. It really, again, it's dependent on goals for you and what you have in your ad budgets. I like to, if I can, start more aggressive. That would be my preferred method. And then watch that for, you say, the next 3 days, and then sort of adjust upward anything that's working, maybe adjust downward things that aren't working. You do want to get enough clicks to actually determine if something is or isn't working. And then once we have, say, a week or 2 of data, then we might start branching out into other match types, potentially adding auto campaigns, etc. But that's our general. Honestly, the 2 things to get right on launch, regardless of like what the campaign build outs look like, is the keyword selection and your bids. If you can get keyword selection and bids right, in any ad account, you're going to get a lot farther than somebody who isn't able to. So I appreciate the question. Hopefully the answer helps. Cool. This is a great question. So I don't know if your name is Super, but watching on YouTube, you're saying just getting into the PPC industry on an entry-level position. Any tips? Yeah, so I would say just get super familiar with the basics, honestly. I know everyone wants to know the absolute craziest launch strategy out there and, what's these cool things. And like we do those all the time and we have like masterminds I'm a part of when we're talking like all these crazy tactics. But at the end of the day, honestly, everything that we're looking to do is to do the basics more efficiently and more effectively. All the data analytics, all of the understanding, all the forecast models that I talk about, it's really just how do I get my bids right? So I want to make sure that I'm advertising the products on the right search terms. And I want to make sure I am advertising at a price that I can afford and that makes sense for the product. That's the two things you're trying to do. Now, where you show up, how you show up, that is determined by match types, campaign build outs, ad types, all of the above. But really, those things are just tweaks that help you control where am I showing up, how am I showing up, and how much am I paying. So if you can sort of like internalize the how am I showing up, where am I showing up, how much am I paying, and then start understanding the levers that change those things. So how much am I paying is your bids and your budget, right? To some extent, placement percentages. Am I showing determined by your keywords and your match types, and then your ad types essentially. So I would just be super cool with getting on with the basics. And the other thing is, not that you don't want to be aware of all of the other ad types and how they function and all the nuances of them. Most ad accounts, regardless of how much they're spending, I mean, we have brands spending like hundreds of $1,000s a month, and when they're, the brands that are spending, I don't know, 15 to 20, you're still, the majority of your ad spend is going to be in sponsored products. So I talk to a lot of like beginner sellers and they're asking me like, oh, they want all of, they feel like they're missing out. You're not going to be missing out in too much if you double down on learning sponsored product ads. Really good. So that would be my advice there. Just get really good on understanding the basics. And if you can connect what you're doing to where the products are showing up and how the two correlate to each other, you're actually going to be ahead of a lot of advertisers who haven't bothered to connect the dots. So hopefully that was helpful. And other things, super is just to be like super helpful. Just my my marketing strategy for our agency is just be nice and help people. You're going to get really, really far if you can do that. Cool. Ziva said, hey, what is, I think, so if you're saying Kindle publishing ad strategy, I'm assuming maybe that is incorrect. But you were asking, I'm just going to go off of ad strategy in general for established brands in Q4. So Q4 is about capitalizing on all of the information and all of the data that you have gained in Q1, Q2, Q3. Q4 is not the time to run extensive testing. It is not the time to run expensive testing. The reason why is cost per clicks are elevated. There's a lot more clicks happening on the platform. It's a lot easier to lose your shirt these days because there's so much movement. So what you want to do is, if you have the data for it, you want to figure out what are the things that work well for your product. So what search terms you convert well on, where do you gain momentum, and then you just double, triple down on that. Typically speaking, we do a lot of budget adjustments these days in lieu of like hiking up bids too much. Although if there are specific search pages that you earmarked as important to your brand, you want to make sure that you're keeping up with the market in terms of bidding. And then just watch it super closely. Like especially, we're coming off of Prime Day. Like we were watching all of our accounts like a hawk the entire day just to make sure that budgets are in place. And again, potential for spikes in spend is pretty high this time of year. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping on top of things. Question on your views on how Prime Fall was overall for sellers. I would say like Prime Day was pretty good this October, which is somewhat surprising because most of us get pretty jaded and we weren't really expecting much in the Prime Day October. It's not the first year that they did it. The first year that they did the Prime Day October, I kind of felt like an afterthought. This year didn't so much. So we definitely saw heavy returns for all of our sellers. For anyone running coupons or deals, increase in sales volume was obviously a lot higher. That's pretty typical for any high like Prime Day or high traffic days. But also we saw returns, higher increases for our sellers who were not running coupons or deals at all. So that was pretty cool. It's nice to see where Amazon does like a very, they do a lot of advertising for Amazon.com. And then when that can translate into additional sales, it's great. Cool. Tom said, hey, Liz, how do I create a category targeting campaign? So you essentially go into it. So it would be, well, if you're talking sponsor, you can also do it in sponsor display ads or sponsor brand ads. We prefer doing them in sponsor product ads. You go into sponsor product ads, you would select product targeting, and then under product targeting, like in the targeting section, there is a way that you can select a specific category you want to advertise in. And then you have the option to refine your categories, meaning you want to get more specific as to what price point of the products in the category, star ratings of the products in the category, and whether they are FBA products or not. I think those are the main refiners. We haven't really had that much luck with audience targeting and sponsor display, so that's really not a core strategy of ours. And so that's how you launch it, and then you just launch it like a regular campaign. Pick your bids, launch it, watch it, make sure you're optimizing for performance. Now, there is a way that you can launch sponsored product category, or again, sponsor display as well, but primarily like sponsored product category targeting campaigns through a bulk file, which is pretty nice. I had someone ask me about that specifically because category targeting can be a little bit tedious to set up. I actually have a video that I filmed on that. It is currently being edited and should be out soon. So if part of your question was how to do that through a bulk file, stay tuned. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel. That will be out shortly. Cool. All right, so here's a good question from Mike. I have a product with three variations, colors. They're independent listings and each has 250, 1,500 reviews. Should these be grouped into one listing? Goodness. So I am not the foremost authority when it comes to listings and, kind of what it works. I know how to run ads for variation products. Like we have a lot of like clothing brands talk about variations. It's insane. By the way, we just released a video on how to create advertising for variations. That is live on the YouTube channel now. I think it went live this Tuesday. So feel free to, might want to go check that out if you're thinking about trying to figure out how to set up the ad campaigns for these. As far as so pros and cons to each. Pros is that if there are their own listings, then you can gain more than one organic and ad spot on a specific search page, which could be good if you were trying to say not dominate but show up more times on a search page. The cons and the flip side to that, of course, is that you have to pay, you have to pay separately for the ads for all three listings. So ad spend can go up in some circumstances. Benefits to combining them are, it's a lot easier. So if they're like different colors, possibly seller or shoppers who see one color and then are like, no, I'm looking for the blue one. And, you clicked on the red one. They might have purchased if you had all of them together. So that's something to think about. Also, if you have variation specific searches. So for instance, we're just saying it's like red shirt, right? If you had women's red shirt and women's blue shirt, and you could advertise, like the blue one on the blue search and the red one on the red search. Well, if those are combined listings, and essentially all of that traffic for those specific variations starts getting funneled into the same listing. So that listing kind of gets exponential traffic because you have not only just the general search terms, so like women's shirt, but then also like women's red shirt, blue shirt, etc., etc. All that traffic gets funneled into the singular listing, which can significantly help boost visibility and rankings for products. So there's kind of pros and cons. I did a interview with Ryan It's up on the YouTube channel about how he approached variations, and that's essentially what he did. Was he had them all grouped because you could have the different variation specific searches and all that traffic being funneled to the main listing. So you might think about that as well. Cool. Ahmed said, hi, hello. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you tuning in. Let's see. All right. Yes. So Tom was saying, do you do these Q&As frequently? I think I want to. I think I've been doing roughly one of these a month. I think I actually want to up that timeline, maybe at least twice a month. And yes, there will be replays on every channel. The easiest replay to watch most likely is going to be on YouTube. So our YouTube channel, I would check that out. Cool. Jeffrey is saying, regarding click-through rate and the search query performance, what is your opinion on comparing impressions to clicks versus search query volume to clicks? Would search query volume be better metric? It's not that one is better or worse. It's that the data points are a little bit different. This is an issue a lot of times when combining data sets that Amazon has given us, because they're not like apples to apples. So for instance, a really weird one is that ad traffic is calculated in the business reports, in the sessions, right? In the traffic to the listing. So listing traffic, which includes ad traffic, is calculated, but clicks are not 100% comparable to sessions. So you get kind of weird, like they're not 100% equivalent, even though they're kind of similar. So you're talking about click-through rate and the search query performance data. So my opinion on comparing impressions to clicks versus search query volume to clicks. Would search query volume be a better? I don't think one is a better metric over the other one. I would honestly compare them both. And just kind of, I would look at, so whenever you're looking at a data set and trying to figure out what to compare it to or how to use that data, the best way and the most accurate way is going to be taking that data set and comparing it to other metrics in that same data set. So for instance, like if you're evaluating search query volume and performance and click-through rates, you would say, okay, so where do I have better click-through rate than the average click-through rate in my search query performance report? Because again, that's comparing apples to apples because it's the same data set. When I have it in my ad console, like what's my average click-through rate versus the click-through rate on this particular target? That would be how I would look at it. Now we do look at both. I do like looking at both, but I wouldn't say I would prefer one or the other. It's just kind of understanding the data set and how to use it. Cool. All right, this is a great question. So we plan on launching a video ad very soon. What would be the best strategy for the video ad? Targeting the keywords we already perform well on, or targeting new keywords to see the results overall? I would target keywords you already perform well on, because that actually is going to help you evaluate your ad creatives much better, because you can look at the performance of the video ad. Typically speaking, your video ad should have a higher conversion rate than your than a typical ad, just due to the ad type. So if you're seeing like lower than average conversion rates or lower than average click-through rates, that would probably be a clue that you're maybe the video creative doesn't hit as hard as you need it to. So we always, when we're starting to roll these things out, we always go with what we know has performed in the past and then just work our way up from there. This is a good question, but I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm going to skip over. I did have a question on my daily routine. My daily routine is a little bit different because I'm not doing full account management at this point. So it might be that you're looking for more of a like account manager type routine, which would be slightly different from mine. Cool. Mike Banks said you're awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it. You're awesome as well. I have a product with 3 color variations. These are listings. Yes. So I think you just asked that question earlier up. You're asking about increasing in conversion rates. I would go check that interview I did with Ryan on on our YouTube channel. That's probably going to be, he went really extensively on essentially how he grew his business through combined variation. So I think it'll give you a lot of good insights there. Let's see. Good question. Elizabeth, I want to reduce my PPC spend, but unfortunately it's going high with the same sales. Is there any solution? Another question, what strategy should we adopt in the launch phase of a private label product? How many campaigns to target? What type with $50 a day per spend? All right, so let's answer the first question. You want to reduce your PPC spend. So follow-up question for myself is, is this a account with more than one product, or is this only have a singular product? If it is an account with more than one product, then there is a more extensive way that we look at things, which is looking at all the products together, calculating the ad spend for each individual product, as well as some other performance metrics. So what you want to do is you want to take all of your products. You can go into the business reports, download it, look at percentages of total. So what percentage of the total sales is this one product bringing in? And then you want to look at this ad spend and say, what percentage of the total ad spend is this one product bringing in? And then what you do is you look at the impact on total sales, the impact on total ad spend, and then you look at the ad efficiencies meaning ACoS, total ACoS, ad sale percentage. I also like to look at the account, so like the average conversion rate or the unit session percentage versus the ad conversion rate. Fun fact is your ad conversion rate should pretty much always be at or slightly higher than your unit session percentage. If it's lower, that's a little clue that maybe your ad targeting isn't performing as well as it should, or maybe you should see if you can get some better targeting in there. So if you're faced with an account and you need to lower ad spend that has a whole bunch of products, what I would do is I would look at which product is maybe I'm overspending on, so that way you do it on a per product level. That evaluation gives you pretty quickly, like, okay, here's the 2 products we need to go after more aggressive. Here's the 3 products we need to pull back ad spend on it. And that can be helpful. If you're just looking at, you just need to reduce your ad spend on a singular product, then it's just looking at what doesn't work. So I would start at the bottom. Where do I have clicks but no sales? And I would just do that. Also, if you just need a really quick reset on an account, if you go into the targeting tab and you look at lifetime, so select lifetime, which means the entire history of advertising in that account. And then you can use a filter, orders equals 0. So essentially that tells you what in the entire account has never converted to an order for me. And that's a great way just to like slash all the bottom stuff that's going on that's never converted whatsoever. So you can get rid of that. And then you go, okay, what hasn't worked in the past, couple months? Okay, so let's see, is there anything that didn't reach that first filter, that the second filter? Okay, so now where do we have things that have a lot of clicks, not that many orders, and a really high ACoS on it? Okay, so maybe those are things. And what you do is you work your way from the bottom on the stuff that's not working great, and you just keep pruning off, seeing what the ad spend results of that, pruning it off, seeing what the ad spend results of that. And that's kind of how I would approach it. Yeah, I mean, if you're cutting back on ad spend significantly, expect it's going to impact sales. It's kind of the name of the game. With your ad spend, you're paying for product visibility. If you cut back on the ad spend and the product does not maintain visibility because there's little to no organic ranking, there's not really much you can do about that. So just keep that in mind when you're pulling back ad spend. I would do it strategically and intentionally. Be careful about going and completely slashing things that are driving sales. All right, so this is a question. I started a PPC for a new product. Nobody's clicking on the keywords. I'm using exact keywords or search volume around 3,000 searches, and is nobody clicking? So my question is nobody clicking, or are you not getting impressions? If you're not getting any impressions, then increase your bid. Sometimes even if you're at the top of the bid range, the bid amount you need to actually gain impressions is going to be significantly higher than you would have thought. So I would look at impressions. If there's little to no impressions, increase bids, keep increasing bids till you get impressions. If you are getting impressions and you're not getting clicks, I would go watch that my video on keyword research for product launches on their YouTube channel, and make sure you're picking very relevant keywords. If you're not picking relevant keywords, then sometimes your product just doesn't resonate with the market as much. And if you are getting a crap ton of impressions, you've tried super relevant keywords, it might be how your product appears to the market. So if you're getting in front of shoppers and they're not resonating with your product, meaning they're not click on it, then you might there might be something within your product, being like your listing, your images, maybe your price point, that just isn't as appealing to shoppers. So I would look at impressions first. If that doesn't work, try looking for relevant keywords. If that doesn't work, then potentially take a look at the listing. Cool. Here's a good question. For a seasonal product that is best-selling months November, December, what campaign strategies would you suggest as the season is approaching? Cool. Great question. I would just say make sure that you, as much as you can, look back at historical data and identify where what searches are super important to your product this time of year, where you convert the best. And then I would make sure that my campaigns are positioned in a way, being my bids, my campaign budgets, etc., that make sure that I'm appearing on those search pages. And you can start that ramp up. Most times if you go in, so Helium 10 now has the ability to look at like search volume performance. There's also really interesting, I'm trying to think of where it's located. I want to say it's in Product Opportunity Explorer, potentially search query performance. There are ways you can kind of like see where that uptick is going to happen. Or if you were selling last year, then oftentimes you can go and see your business reports or other ones and just kind of see where you start to gain that momentum and that lift. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that, say a couple weeks before that you've really positioned your ads in a place to appear on those search pages. And that's what I would do. All right, questions from Sebastian. Is there any evidence that long-running campaigns have a legacy effect, i.e. canceling and then creating the exact copy would impact performance negatively? Yes, I have seen this. So it really depends on the product and how well the product does as to how much this is going to impact. So for instance, like if you had a product that was the conversion rates were amazing, everything was amazing. If you duplicate a campaign, you might be able to replicate for performance. But I have seen accounts, I've been in accounts enough where there was one particular search that was like super broad, but the campaign had been running for a really, really long time. At like a top of search placement, super aggressive. And for whatever reason, it was like working really, really well. The rest of the account had started to like kind of fall off, meaning conversion rates weren't as great, just because the market got really competitive. And so I've seen sellers go in and say, oh, the performance hasn't gotten as good. So they'll just like chop off those legacy campaigns. And when you go to restart them, depending on what your conversion rate is now versus what, even if you like paused it for say a couple weeks and restart it again, sometimes you can't get back the momentum. So if you have like a legacy campaign that's absolutely crushing it on a main search term, I would do my best to like protect that thing and not not mess with it. Now, I've had some people say that, like, oh, if it's an exact match campaign, we've noted that there's only a couple weeks of weird fluctuations, then we can get stuff to work again. Sometimes you can, but my opinion is, why would I want 2 weeks of crap performance when I can just keep the original campaign? Unless there's like some very definite reason where if I keep the original campaign, I'm going to end up screwing myself for whatever reason. My opinion is, if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it, because sometimes you can't get the momentum back. All right. Question is, we noticed that our sponsor display spend in the UI is approximately 20% higher than what match targeting report shows. What would be the reason for this? That is interesting. Our sponsor display spend, is that the total spend, or is that the cost per clicks? So that would be something to note. I would open maybe a ticket on this if you were trying to figure it out. The other thing that you should know is that sponsor display automatically has dynamic bidding built into it. So sponsor display targeting, if you weren't aware, you can't turn it off. There is a default, I think, a 200% increase in the ability to Amazon to raise your cost per clicks. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with that in the match targeting report, but I would definitely go in and check. It is possible that potentially the match targeting report wouldn't show CPM models. So I would say, like, if there's a particular targeting type or bidding strategy that it doesn't include there, because that could be possible as well. Good question. So here's this question says, if I'm starting Amazon wholesale, then what are the ways to promote the brand's products? So the one thing you do want to know is, for Amazon advertising, you must maintain the buy box for your ads to be able to run. As long as you have the buy box, you can run any other brands, any other ad types. So I would just treat it like I typically would. The one thing you do want to know, though, is if you have a brand's products and there's other sellers, or maybe the brand owner themselves are selling under that brand name, I would be very careful with your sponsored brand ads. And in fact, depending on how comfortable you are with like looking at data and doing calculations, I might just completely stay away from those altogether. We have a video up on the channel talking about sponsor brands halo sales. So essentially what this does is, any products that are purchased underneath that brand name, as long as those purchases originated from a sponsored brand ad, that will be attributed as an ad sale. But there is potential. So we have wholesale client, or not wholesale, we have licensed, we have clients who sell licensed clothing. And with those, what we've noted is that some of the, sponsor brands ad purchases are actually for products that are not sold within our catalog. So that can actually happen. Sponsored brands ads, both video and headline ads. So I would be a little bit wary about that. Other than that, it's really business as usual. You can use any ad strategies that you find that you want to implement. Other than, typically when it's wholesale products, the margins are a little bit lower. So that can, kind of make things a little bit more complex, but it's still the same ad strategy. Oh, cool. Dula said something about question above. So Dula, I think I answered your question. Cool. This is a really great question from Super. Any realization you've learned in PPC practices that seemed like a dumb mistake now, but was at the moment an aha moment when you learned it? So this is, okay, here's something, right? It seems stupid. Any campaigns you launch, any keywords you introduce to the account, anything, any budgets you raise, any bids you raise that you try to do to increase the sales, potentially can increase sales, but it will always 100% increase ad spend. So it seems kind of like duh when you say it, but like, so for instance, one of the other questions where they're saying like, hey, I really need to bring down, my my ad spend, right? But it sounded like total sales volume was also an issue. I wouldn't launch any campaigns as much as that it is often in an account manager's description that like, oh, you're gonna, launch additional campaigns. Yeah, we should be launching campaigns continuously to test things. However, those additional campaigns will increase the ad spend. And if your objective is to say bring down a cost or bring down total a cost, really one of the main levers you're doing in those two instances is lowering ad spend. So that is not the right time to launch test campaigns. So I would say it's just being aware of, really, it's being aware of the basics and then also being aware of the root calculations of the data. So from when I say root calculations, I mean ACoS is ad spend divided by ad sales, right? So if I'm trying to lower that, I want that percentage to be better, I got to lower ad spend and keep the same ad sales. Or total ACoS numbers, it's ad spend divided by total sales, right? So to make total ACoS better, I need to reduce the ad spend and maintain the same amount of total sales. Because if it's a fraction, you reduce both the numerator and denominator of the fraction, it's still the same fraction. So you're trying to like make one of those numbers either, ad spend goes down, ad sales go up. So it's really just understanding that. And then, like I said, just understanding the things that go into it, knowing that introducing new stuff to the account will introduce new ad spend. So it's really just making sure you're being smart about it. It's a great question. So the question is, I launched a product 3 days ago, still have 0 reviews. When I try to create a sponsored brands video exact targeting campaign, but I can't find the new ASIN in ad products. Is this because the product is very new or has no reviews? You should be able to add it. I was going to say, sometimes if it's a new product, you need to make sure that the brand registry has gone through. Sometimes in sponsored brand ads, I think sponsored display as well, even though your brand registered, that brand has not been connected to your ad account. I don't know the back end of it. I just know that it happens. So see, are you able to search for products and like type in? Because sometimes when you're looking through your ASINs, it won't work. But sometimes you can search for it, not underneath your brand name, but just in general, using the ASIN, and oftentimes that will allow it to come up. So try doing that. And if it still persists, I would open a support ticket with Amazon. But it doesn't matter if there's no reviews, you should still be able to advertise it. All right. So if ad conversion rate for a product is lower than unit percentage for the product, is the best way steps to correct this. Yeah. So this is what I want to do is go into the account and take a look at everything that I am targeting for that product. And I also want to take a look at what has the most ad spend for that product, right? So again, going back to like the numbers behind the numbers and looking at the root causes of things. If you're looking at the average ad conversion rate for a product, well, the average is the sum total of clicks divided by the sum total of orders, right? So the thing that has the most amount of clicks on that, whatever target has the most amount of clicks for that product is probably the thing that is driving down the conversion rate. So most times what I see in these scenarios is when I go into, I create a list of all of the targets that I have for that one singular product, and then I sort by spend or I sort by clicks. Most times what's happening is that the majority of the ad spend is going to a top keyword that the brand has identified. We want to rank on this, but the conversion rate of that keyword is very, very low. And so in those cases is often a great indicator that like, hey, we're going after a target that doesn't make sense for our brand because our conversion rates are very high. And if you don't have really high conversion rates, then typically speaking, you're going to struggle to rank on it anyways. So oftentimes you'll find that it's a keyword that you've just been spending a lot of money. You're kind of spinning your wheels. You haven't seen any increase in ranking. And so for those ones, it's like, hey, okay, so this isn't working so well for ranking. The conversion rate's low. Now, if it is also the keyword that is bringing in the majority of the ad sales, then you do want to be careful. In those cases, I would just start strategically lowering the bids. I wouldn't just cut it off cold turkey. And then you want to look deeper into the keyword set and say, okay, is there anything that we do have good conversion rates on? Is there anything that we do get good order volumes on? And can we start, kind of spending more on those? And when I say like reallocating ad budgets, it's simply turning down the things that aren't working as well and turning up the stuff that is working. And then ad budgets are naturally going to shift to the stuff that you've sort of given more higher bids or budgets to. But that would be the step-by-step like nitty-gritty that I would do. And sometimes it's intentional. So if the brand's like, yep, we don't care, we're going after this keyword, sometimes the averages will just remain the way that they are with the ad conversion rate being lower. But if you're getting super specific and you're trying to optimize for things that are converting, your ad conversion rate should be a little better. Cool. This is a great question. So how can I reduce my ad spend on a keyword if I'm already ranking on the first page? Yeah, so this is a question that a lot of people will ask is, hey, I have, a keyword. I'm already ranked on the first page. I want to turn it down. The first thing I would say is I would not shut it off cold turkey. You don't want to do that. That's just a recipe for most likely decreasing your ranking for that keyword. So you want to start slowly dialing it down. So there's two ways of doing it. One is much more time intensive. The other one is a great way to do it, especially if you have like a lot of keywords that you want to sort of start tuning it down on. So the first one is just to go in an incognito window, look at that search page and say, okay, where is my ad showing up, right? And instead of showing up top of page 1, let me test lowering the bid and seeing, can I get middle of page 1, right? And then in tandem with turning these bids down, so you're turning down the bids is what you're doing. You also want to make sure that you're tracking your rankings and you're tracking your total sales volume. Because if you start lowering those and then all of a sudden your sales takes a nosedive, your ranking takes a nosedive, then you need to maintain that momentum or that visibility on those search pages with aggressive ads, or you're going to lose ranking. So you want to watch these very closely, especially if they're really high priority targets. But what you do is, again, you just lower that bid. Okay, I'm appearing middle of page 1. Great. Okay, let's watch it. My sales are fine. My ranking is fine. Oh, can I get like bottom of page 1? Okay, so you go search it again. You get bottom of page 1. Like I said, that's really time intensive and really manual, because you have to go manually search it, see where it is, tweak the bid, go back and look, where am I showing on the ad page? It's a whole thing. If you have a target that is driving immense amount of traffic and sales volume for you, and it's really, really important for the, maintaining visibility on the product, I might go ahead and do that extra work. Second way of do it, much more scalable, would be if you are targeting a certain ACoS target for that product or for that keyword target, just turn it down. So if I had say a 30% target for that keyword and I'm running it at 30%, let's test 27% ACoS target. Okay, and that's going to naturally optimize your bids down, because you probably have some sort of bid sequence that if ACoS is too high, then I'm going to lower my bid, and it hopefully is incremental. So you want to turn, okay, so we hit 27% ACoS, nothing happened. All right, what about 25, right? You can go 30 to 25. I like just doing it, kind of like a stair step down. And I would just run it that way. And then that will naturally lower your bids. And then again, watch your ranking, watch your sales volume to make sure. All right, so this is a good question. Is it a good idea to run lots of broad keywords in separate campaigns? Yes, we actually do this. We have some specific campaign structures that we call like a single word broad match, meaning it's only a single word. So like the word baby, the word cup, the word, whatever's relevant to the product. We'll actually run those in broad match, and those campaigns do really, really well in terms of performance. Now, things to keep in mind here is you do not want to scale these bids, because what often happens with these broad keywords is the bids will be great, the ACoS is going to look great. You can get like 5% ACoS on these targets, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I want to increase the bids. So you will, and then all of a sudden you have $1 targets on the keyword baby in a broad match, and it starts targeting all these completely irrelevant traffic, and you're paying way too much for it, and it can be an absolute mess. So what you want to do is make sure you put what we call it a bid cap, which is essentially like in your bidding software or somewhere. If you're doing it manually, you make a mental note. I'm never going to increase bids for these types of campaigns beyond X being whatever is considered low for your account. Low for some of our accounts is like 15, 20 cents. Low for a supplement account might be 75 cents. So low is somewhat relative to the account. But yeah, and I am always an advocate for not putting more than one match type inside of a campaign. So I like splitting out these into their own separate. Someone on LinkedIn is saying that the screen is blank, but you can hear me. That's super weird. Should take a look at that. I don't know if it's... I'm looking at it right now. It might just be you on LinkedIn. Cool. All right, I got a couple more minutes, so if anyone has any questions. Here's a good one. Do the ads show according to geographical location? Is there any difference between what you see in the West Coast compared to East Coast? The answer is yes, there is a difference, but the follow-up, the second part to that answer is there's nothing you can do about it. There is different geographical rankings for things. There's different geographical search pages. However, you can't say, hey, only show my ads to people on the West Coast or only show my ads to people on the East Coast. That's not a functionality of Amazon ads. So unfortunately, yes, it is different, but nothing you can do about it. Cool. Well, we are at about an hour, which is awesome. I think we have time to squeak in one more question if somebody had it, but otherwise, looks like we've pretty well gotten to all of those. I think there was, yeah, there's a couple questions in here about SEO and things, but as this is an Amazon ads Q&A, and those questions aren't part of my expertise, I'm going to... Yes. So Sebastian said something about you can day part. So yep, you definitely can day part. Day parting is not going to change geographical locations though. Oh, here's a good question. In auto campaigns, do you target all variations? So I'm not sure if you mean variations as in product variations or if you mean variations as in all the different targeting types. Do we target all the variations? Sometimes. Oftentimes we'll set up 2 autos, one of them which is low bid, which targets all of the variations, and then the second one that we'll set up just targets our best sellers. Is oftentimes how we'll do it. If you want to get super granular, and if it's a product that one has the ad budget to be able to support like just a heck ton of low bid autos, or it's a high priority in terms of like a high sales product, then what you might do is also create autos around different groupings. So we deal a lot in clothing. So like all of the blue shirts right? You might just segment them into their own campaign. Maybe all the medium sizes, segment them into an auto. You can do things like that, which kind of gets you some interesting search volume and traffic. Things here, keep the bids low. Don't ever run these as like aggressive ranking anything. So they're there just to get you low cost, interesting visibility. So. And it looks like we are at time. So this has been fabulous. I really appreciate all the questions. I appreciate everyone joining in and listening. There's been a lot of great questions asked. So if you are interested in figuring and like finding the replay, there will be a replay up on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go there and check that out. And as always, I thank everyone for joining, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.